The province has announced its plan to address classroom size and complexity. 476 schools across Alberta will be supported by what are being called complexity teams, made up of one teacher and two educational assistants per team. They will focus on kindergarten to grade 6 students and schools. The plan came from a committee established to look into the issue following last year's teachers' strike. Joanne Pitman was on that committee. She's the chief superintendent at the Calgary Board of Education. This plan, how did it come to be, and what do you make of it as a solution to the challenges?
Well, I would say, first of all, that I appreciate the fact that the Premier and Minister have recognized that we need more resources in schools, period. And this plan is something that the Premier and Minister were committed to moving forward on, and something that we will look to implement as soon as we possibly can.
Okay, well, how do you implement it? I want to get into some of the details, but I wondered about that detail. Well,
we are in the midst of hiring, in fact, for next year already. So we're in our spring hiring cycle now, and we're going to be adding in this component. And that's something that will assist us in making sure we can add more staff where we need them most. Certainly, though, it is challenging hiring at this time to start immediately, as people have already made their plans. So we're going to need to do a lot of work in a very short period of time, and we're hoping we can find the best resources possible to add more staff and supports in our classrooms.
So does that mean going to education faculties across the country? Does that mean, like, what's the sub list look like? Because I think that's a tight resource as well.
It is a tight resource. We have over 1,200 teachers on our substitute teacher list, but in many cases, that's not necessarily teachers who are wanting to work full-time because they've got other life commitments or other work that they're engaged in. So certainly recruitment across the country is something that we're doing. We work very closely with our faculties. We're also, or with our post-secondary faculties of education. And we're going to need to be creative. We have talented staff in schools now, and we want to give them more time and resources to be able to work with kids.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's not get bogged down in the how you're going to find them. But 118 of these teams will be created within the CBE on some timeline. How will the teams work? What will they do? How will they operate and start to relieve some of the pressure?
I'll maybe start from what we have already, because we're always looking to build on what exists so that we can get better. So we have resource teachers in schools now. What that could look like is adding 2 additional EAs and then being able to free up more time for that teacher to have all of the access to students and programming. Flexibility, what this means is not just in one classroom, but across our different classrooms within a school. So a team would work with referrals, then they would make sure that those supports were there. It could look like students being able to have more scheduled breaks when they need them so that they're ready to learn when the classroom teacher is teaching. It isn't about a segregated class. It is about more supports in classrooms right now.
This is for kindergarten to grade 6. If I'm at a middle school, I might be thinking, wow, this doesn't help. I mean, that decision to focus on the early years, I mean, you can see a benefit there, but it does exclude the other 7 to 12.
You know, we're looking to learn more information about the schools that we can consider, because we do have middle schools that have elementary grades in them. So we have schools that are grades 4 to 9. And in many cases, we can look to expand those supports where we can in those types of schools. This is a first step. And it's a recognition that we need more resources given our population growth and the complexity. I am hopeful. I heard the Premier talk about budget 26-27, or for us, that would be our school year upcoming. And I'm hopeful that we're going to see something that can expand into those older grades as well.
What makes you hopeful? What did you hear?
I heard that they are committed to continuing this, and also the commitments to Bill 2 identify that more staff need to be hired.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, you know, this is fairly new, but how far do you expect or hope this will go to address the concerns we've heard from students, parents, and teachers over the last year, especially through the fall?
The addition of well over 200 EAs into our system in schools is something that would have an immediate impact. the addition of 118 teachers would have an immediate impact. Our Board of Trustees has been advocating for additional funding, and they've talked about 40 to 50 million additional dollars needed just to support complexity, never mind some of the other pieces that we'd like to expand on. And this lines up into that space.
Part of the announcement yesterday was some new provincial data released that says that the average classroom size in Alberta was 25. Big province, lots of schools that look different, lots of classrooms that look different. Anyway, that did raise some eyebrows. What do you make of that number and that finding?
You know, within an average is a lot of stories and a lot of individual, as you said, we have many different types of classrooms, and we have class sizes that we would like to see smaller. Some of that is impacted by the physical space that's indeed available in individual schools. And in other cases, it's about thinking differently around how we provide supports to students. We know students need to have close relationships with their teachers, and we want to create communities of schools where that is the lived experience of every student.
Yeah. What would you say about classroom size at the CBE?
Our classroom size averages, if I break them out by division, are certainly in line with where the province is at, with the exception of some of our middle and high school areas where we certainly do have greater population growth and are limited by space. And so where we can seek to address those, we also offer such a wide range of programming in our high schools. And that comes at a cost in other ways as well, because it means that you're seeking to provide more choice in courses, and that in some cases could result in different classes being larger. And so it's finding that balance in between, and our principals work hard with their communities to do that.
Yeah. Okay, the stories and averages. I mean, what's an example of a CBE classroom? And maybe it's, middle or high school where these resources won't end up, at least in the first step. Where you can see the complexity and the numbers pressure.
Mm-hmm. Well, it varies depending on where you live in the city, I would say. But when I look at a middle school classroom in one of our schools that is a grade 8 classroom, there's 35 students. 20 of them are learning English as an additional language. And of those 20, at least 10 are just starting to learn English. And that means a great deal of additional adjustments in how you enter into teaching at a grade 8 level. In addition to that, 5 are identified with a special education code and have learning disabilities. So there's a great deal of pressure in that type of a situation.
How many teachers or education assistants or adults are in that classroom?
You would have one teacher, and depending on the needs of the student, for special education, you may have access to an EA for portions of the day or specific disciplines or subjects that are being taught, and then an EAL assistant as well to provide some additional supports, but they are often spread. So in that type of an example, and I could identify a grade 4 to 5 or 6 class that would look similar. The reality is these teams would make a big difference in a classroom like that. And in some cases, it would allow us to decrease the class size so that we could also increase supports.
You did the work with the committee. Just 20 seconds here because we're out of time. What isn't happening that you hope is next step?
Sustainable funding so that we can really plan. Our students change, our classrooms change, and we need to be able to be ready and responsive as fast as possible.